Well, hello again, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone here. Thank you very much for joining me on this session again. For those that don't know me, where have you been? In all seriousness, my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm a partner and the head of the employment law practice at Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. Our firm is the biggest employee side firm in Canada. We operate in Ontario, in BC, and in Alberta. And what I do on this session every week on social media, I come here to answer your questions. So I'm here live. Again, my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer, and I'm here live to answer your questions about whatever workplace issue you are dealing with. So easy to participate. Type in the question. I'll see it. I'll answer it, and you'll be able to walk away having some answers. I know there's a lot of questions these days about losing your job, about suspensions, about mandatory vaccines, about COVID testing, whatever the issue, whatever the problem, severance packages. I'm going to start answering questions. Before I do that, let me give you one more address to keep in mind. To connect with me off social media, to have a private discussion, very easy to do. You just go to employmentlawyer.ca, again, employmentlawyer.ca, and you'll see phone numbers there, email address, it's all there, forms there. You can get a lot more information about your workplace rights, so a really good resource, employmentlawyer.ca. But right now, this session, this half hour, I'm live. Ask your questions. I'm going to start right now answering them. Let's see. Let me just scroll here. Good. From Stavrob1 on YouTube. Is there a privacy concern if I'm asked to distribute test kits to my staff that have not disclosed or are unvaccinated? Well, if your employer identifies who's vaccinated or who's not, it is a privacy concern, but ultimately it's the concern of those individuals. They have to raise that with their employer. It's okay for you to do if your employer asks you to do that. Next question is from Tanti. Sorry if I mispronounce the name on Facebook. My daughter in the last year at the University of Toronto sent them a religious letter, signed exemption. They said it is not enough. It's tough to deal with universities. Ultimately, there's not going to be a lot that you can do other than to file a human rights complaint against the university. They will not let her in unless she's vaccinated. Even a human rights complaint is going to take a lot of time. So with respect to university, she has to decide, does she get vaccinated, continue studying, or does she not? It's a tough decision. I understand that completely. From Kim on Facebook. If you join a lawsuit against your employer, are you still able to receive severance if you are put on an unpaid leave of absence, non-unionized employee? So if you want severance, that means you're taking the position that the leave of absence is a termination. By putting you on the leave of absence, it's as if your employer is letting you go. Okay, you can choose to treat that as a constructive dismissal and require your employer to give you severance. In other words, there's no right to put you on a leave of absence. Now, I don't know what you mean join a lawsuit. There's no lawsuit to join. If your employer puts you on a leave of absence and you want to get severance, we'll take the necessary legal action to get you that severance, okay? So you contact my office, we'll discuss and we'll get started right away. There's no lawsuit to join. It will be your individual case. Next question is from Peter. Can an employer make an employee pay for a rapid COVID test, or is the employer responsible for safety items in the workplace? Yes, the employer should pay for that, okay? The reality is if they don't, that could be a constructive dismissal, and employers should pay for something that they require unless there's a government mandate that requires them to have that. But if it's something that they've decided to do, even though there's not necessarily a government mandate, yes, they should be paying for that. Let's see. So Tracy has a question. She says she's a unionized employee, is going to be put on a leave of absence. So this is an important answer to Tracy and for everyone else that's unionized. The only one that can help you if you're unionized is the union. That's always going to be the answer. Whatever the scenario, whatever the problem, the union is the only one allowed to help you. You cannot do anything without your union or outside the union. You can't hire me. You can't hire another lawyer. It has to be the union. even if the union won't help you, that doesn't mean you can say, well, forget the union, I'm going to find someone else. It has to be the union. If they won't help you, there's nothing you can do other than to file a claim or a complaint against the union at the labor board. And hopefully the labor board can order the union to help you. But you cannot do anything. I can't help you. My answer is always going to be, you have to talk to the union. Okay, Sherry, on Facebook, can they mandate vaccines? Is this legal? So Sherry and everyone else, I don't want you to think in terms of legal or illegal. You have to think in terms of what's going to happen if they do it. Because regardless of legality, if your employer says you're going to be let go if you don't vaccinate, you will be let go. You cannot stop your employer from letting you go. You can't physically stop them. Now, if you are let go, they're going to owe you compensation. If you're not part of a union, they're going to owe you severance, potentially maybe even human rights damages. So it's a question of what is better for you, and you can only make that decision. Are you better off being vaccinated and keeping your job, or are you better off deciding not to be vaccinated, losing your job, and then getting compensation? That's a personal decision. So it doesn't matter really if it's legal or not. What matters is it's going to happen, and you simply have to decide how to respond. You can get compensation if you lose your job or even if you're suspended, okay? But you can't prevent your employer from doing that, from making you, putting you on a leave or letting you go. All right, let's see. From Ephraim, could you please recommend what is the best time to apply for EI after you're terminated? So you should always apply for EI right away. As soon as you're terminated, you get your record of employment, you apply for EI. Now, you may not get it. If you don't get it, we may need to reapply again after we negotiate your severance. Okay, we should always apply for EI right away. Next question is from Jody. Can they fire you for not taking a vaccine? I work in a union. Okay, remember what I said about union? It has to be the union. Next question is from Sweater Freak. I love that, on YouTube. If provincial BC government mandates the vaccine for private sector and the employee refuses, will they get no severance and unemployment? Does the government mandate eliminate employment contract? It does. So if you're working for an industry where the government said you have to be vaccinated, then your employer can let you go without any compensation if in fact you don't vaccinate. Okay, they can let you go or suspend you and there's no recourse. Now, you could potentially take legal action against the government to say that the mandate is not constitutional. That's something that's going to take years to resolve, and that's not something that is going to solve your problem right now. But for example, in BC, they've said long-term care homes have to be vaccinated, people in healthcare. Beyond that, there isn't a mandate. There's no mandate. But if the mandate applies to you, whether it's in Ontario, we also have a mandate for a long-term care home. You have to be vaccinated. And if you don't, your employer can let you go without any compensation, okay? But only if there's a mandate. Let's see. From Tara. I work at a hospital in Ontario and we put on the leave of absence for not compliance. Will I get approved for EI when I put on leave? Likely not, okay? Likely it's something we'll have to fight for because your employer is probably going to say that it's your decision, essentially. So unfortunately not. Next question is from Dr. Gadget on YouTube. I have a religious exemption from the States and my local priest signed saying I am in good standing. Should that fly? Your priest has to say that your belief not to be vaccinated is part of the religion. It's not enough to say that you're in good standing. The priest, the minister, the religious leader has to say that your belief that you should not be vaccinated is part of the religion. It's not enough to say that you just believe it. You have to show that it is part of the religion. If your priest says that and they don't give you an exemption, that could be a human rights violation. From Melissa, if you file a human rights complaint against an employer, can they fire you? Legally, they cannot. Again, you can't stop them, but no, legally an employer is not allowed to fire someone because they filed a human rights complaint. Okay, Andrea is asking questions about the union. As I said, the union is the only one allowed to help you. There's not much that you can do. That is unfortunate. From Mary Ann on Facebook. I work at a government-funded child development center as a custodian. I refused the vaccine, so as of November 1, I will be on leave of absence. I guess no way of getting around this. Should I seek a lawyer? Do I have human rights issue? I'm not unionized. So yes, you absolutely have to give us a call. If in fact you're put on a leave of absence, you can treat that leave of absence as a termination of your employment and require your employer to pay you severance. There could potentially be other damages as well, human rights damages. You can't stop that. You can't prevent that. There may be human rights damages. There certainly is severance. And you can get that. As soon as that happens, let me know. Connect with me in my office as soon as that happens. And again, to connect with me, to connect with my team, have a whole team across Canada, easy to do. You just go to employmentlawyer.ca, employmentlawyer.ca. Email addresses there, phone numbers there, fax numbers there, forms are there. Everything is there, employmentlawyer.ca. And my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm live taking your questions about employment law and about workplace rights. I'll continue asking lots of questions today, guys, so keep them coming. From Michelle on Facebook. I work for a bank. Looks like I will have to get a jab by October 31st. My contract does not mention anything about vaccinations as part of the employment offer. What are my options? So 2 options. Either you get the vaccine or you don't get the vaccine. If you don't, your employer may choose to let you go or suspend you. If they let you go or suspend you, you're going to be owed severance. So ultimately, do you get vaccinated, continue working, or do you risk losing your job and pursuing severance? Those are the only 2 options. There's really not a third option. So next question is from Vital World. Maybe I mispronounced on YouTube. How do your fees work? Most of our cases, I should say, are on a contingency basis. Okay, so we don't require any payment up front. Next question from Janice on Facebook. If my employer reduces my hours from 37.5 to 30, is that a constructive dismissal? Absolutely, yes. Yes, that is a significant change to the terms of employment. It's right around 20%, I think, reduction in your hours. So that is absolutely a constructive dismissal. So if that happens, you have 2 options. Option 1 is you accept it and you continue working. Keep in mind, if you accept it and continue working, you give your company the right to do it again. Not a good thing. So that's option 1. Option number 2 is you can choose to say, by reducing my hours, that's a constructive dismissal. I'm treating that as a termination and you have to pay me my severance. Janice, if that's what you want to do, you know what to do. Contact me through employmentlawyer.ca. Before you leave, before you tell them I'm out of here, contact me so we can do this properly. Okay, employmentlawyer.ca. Next question from Andrea. Again, unionized question. It has to be the union. Remember that, Andrea. Melissa asks, how long can you be on an unpaid leave? Can they just not call you back to work if you're on it? So, Melissa, they don't have a right to put you on a leave. So it's not a question of how long can they keep you. It's a question of, do they even have the right to put you on at all? If you're in a non-union situation and there's no government mandate with respect to a vaccine, your employer does not have a right to put you on, meaning on day 1 of that leave, you can choose to treat that as a termination. So if you're on a leave, again, 2 options. You can stay on a leave and see what happens, and you can stay forever. Or you can choose to treat that as a termination. You can do that on day 1, on day 10, on day 20, whatever you decide, and then you have to pursue severance. If that happens to you and you want to pursue severance, again, you know what to do. Hopefully, you contact me through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Let's see. Okay. Ephraim asks, I think you've asked the same question about EI. I've answered that earlier, so you can rewind and see my answer. Okay, guys, I'm not going to answer any other union questions because ultimately it has to be the union that helps you. There's nothing that I can do other than tell you, speak to your union and push your union. There's nothing else that anyone, myself or anyone else, can do. From LV, Evie on YouTube. Our company is legally required to give severance if you're terminated. Yes, if you lose your job, unless you did something awful, you stole, you committed fraud, and you're let go, yes, your employer has to pay you severance. So the next question, of course, is how much severance? So let me give you a way to find out right now. Evie and anyone else, if you want to know now, this very second, how much severance you are owed, easy. You grab your phone, you grab your tablet, your desktop, you go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Again, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You see the address on the screen below me? And that has our severance calculator tool. You go there, use our severance calculator, you answer a few questions, and you find out in seconds how much severance you are owed. It's free, it's anonymous, it's easy to use, you don't put in any names, you don't put any credit card numbers, and you can find out right there if you're owed 2 months severance, 24 months severance, or something in between. It's free and anonymous, so check it out, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. Let's see. Next question from JC200 2004 on YouTube. When the government requires vaccination for access to wait room in cases where a patient has been prescribed training, again, if the government requires it, it may be a human rights violation, but I'm not even going to go there. It's good luck pursuing that. We're talking about situations where your employer does something independent of what the government does. Next question from Tara on Facebook. Would the vaccine exemption letter written by a lawyer help in regard to being put on a leave of absence? No. It's not. A lawyer can't give you an exemption letter. A doctor can, a religious leader can, priest, minister, rabbi, reverend, etc., but not a lawyer. So I've been asked to do that. There's nothing that I can do. If you don't have a doctor's note or a letter from a religious leader, you're not going to get an exemption. Again, if you don't get an exemption and you are let go, you're owed severance, and it could still potentially be a human rights violation. But again, you can't prevent your employer from doing that. Next question. Okay. Fantania, you have a very long question. I'm going to skip that. It's hard for me to read that in a setting like this. Feel free to send me an email, help@employmentlawyer.ca, to send it directly to me. Again, help@employmentlawyer.ca. That goes directly to me. Next question is from Corey on Facebook. Non-union agency states that they require us as staff to reveal what our vaccination status is by October 31st. If not, they were put on an unpaid leave. They state that they have lawyers that looked into this and it's not against legislation. Would this be correct? Again, it doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't, because against or not against, that it's going to happen. Even if I told you they're wrong and it's against it, they will do it, okay? So your choices are either you get vaccinated or you don't and you go on a leave, and at that time you can get severed. So don't worry about whether it's legal or not, because it's going to happen. But what I'm telling you is you will be owed severance, absolutely, potentially human rights damages as well if you're let go. So think about that. Those are the things you have to think about in terms of rights, as opposed to legal or not. You can get hung up on that. But even if you show them that it's not legal, it's not going to change. It's not going to matter. They're not going to change their mind. Okay. Let's see. Next question is from Vital World. Okay. Well, Vital World says there's a lot of folks that just can't afford lawyers. But again, we do most of our cases on a contingency basis. So yeah, you absolutely can afford it, because there's no payment up front and there's no payment at all unless you're successful. So I think everyone can afford it. Absolutely. So let's see. Next question is from Tusi on YouTube. If terminated and a lawsuit is filed, will the employer have to give you your job back? No, your employer won't have to give you your job back. It's just a matter of compensation that they owe you. The months of pay, the months of salary, the months of income that they have to pay you. So no, they will not have to give you your job back. Where you can get your job back is if you're unionized and the union files a grievance and they're successful. But in a non-union environment, you cannot get your job back. Elaine asks, is there a religious exemption in Ontario? If your religious leader in your community says that for religious reasons, your belief is legitimate based on the religion, then yes, you'd be able to get a religious exemption, but you need a religious leader. Tusi also asks, I work from home, why should I have to vaccinate? I agree, it doesn't really make a lot of sense if you work from home, but again, that's not even the question. The question is, if your employer says, if you don't vaccinate, you're out of here, it's going to happen. Whether that's right or not, whether it makes sense or not, it's a question of the compensation that they're going to owe you as a result of doing that. Okay? Let's see. Next question is from Sean. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. That's not an employment issue. Matt, you're in the US. I can't help you in the US. We're in Canada. Natalie asks on Facebook, I've been back and forth with my employer and they have said right on the email that I will be put on an unpaid leave as of the 1st of November. Will they give me papers? Do I ask for it, or do I just not show up on the 1st of November to be ready to work? They may give you papers, they may not. They may give you a record of employment. As long as they can't deny that they put you on a leave. If they send you an email saying you're on a leave, that's good enough. Ultimately, what it means is you have a right to pursue or to treat that leave as a termination of employment. We can then get you severance, we can get you EI. That's all you need is just confirmation that they've done that, and it could be as simple as an email, text message. R on YouTube says, so the government can just mandate the vaccine and then we lose our right to severance? Yes and no. So practically speaking, yes, you can challenge a government mandate on constitutional grounds, but that takes forever. It takes years. So as a practical matter, if your employer is in a situation where it's not their choice, they're not choosing to say you lose your job or you have to be vaccinated, it's the government telling them that they don't have a choice. In that situation, yes, you can lose your job without severance. Tusi asked, how much severance am I entitled to? As I said, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca has our severance calculator tool. You can find out in seconds how much you're owed. Okay, Tusi, if you're in the US, you're kind of wasting time here because we're in Canada. Let's see, from Candace, I was of the understanding that there was a Supreme Court case which set the precedent that no proof is required to prove your religion. That does not apply here. If you're saying that for religious reasons, I can't get a vaccine, you need to show that that's true. Otherwise, anyone can say that, right? I can say, well, I have this other super secret religion, and trust me, based on my religion, I can't get vaccinated. It doesn't work that way. You have to be able to show it. And because of that, yes, your employer can absolutely say you need something corroborating that. And the most logical thing is a letter from your religious leader. Okay. I'm just looking at questions that I can answer. Okay. So Corey asks, do you know of any doctors in Alberta that will give exemption letters? The only one that can give an exemption letter is your doctor, your family doctor, if your doctor believes that for medical reasons you can't get it. There's no doctors that are just giving them. If you have a doctor that's aware of your medical history and based on that medical history or medical condition, the doctor feels that it's unsafe for you to get the vaccine, that doctor can give you a letter. That's the only way to do it. So Alex says, don't employers have a duty to keep a safe work environment? How does this interact with vaccination status? Of course they have a duty to keep a safe work environment. But the government has said that in most cases, there's no requirement for vaccines. So in other words, government is saying that your workplace is safe as long as there's masking and social distancing and contact tracing. So the employer can't necessarily say, well, we decided that it's even safer. That's not a question of, is it safer? Plus, if employers have already been operating safely for the last year and a half without the vaccine, it's difficult for the employer to say that now, because of a workplace safety issue, we have to have people vaccinated. Now, if the government says that your workplace is not safe unless you're vaccinated and they impose a mandate, that's very different. But if there's no mandate, it's difficult for the employer to say that. Think about it this way. An employer can then say, well, everyone has to wear helmets all the time. It doesn't matter, always. because it's always going to be safer with a helmet than without a helmet. Again, that would be ridiculous. I think you understand the point. It's from Sean. Is there a risk that an employer dismissal from my publicly traded company because of my refusal to disclose vaccine status could result in a termination for cause and thus receive no severance? No, it's not a termination for cause if you don't get vaccinated, okay? Unless there's a government mandate, it's not going to be a termination for cause. It's going to be a termination without cause, meaning you're going to be owed severance. Okay, I don't know what that is here. From Karen, had some weird comment there. From Ariel on YouTube, my employer wants to rotate my shift schedule that I don't like. It's due to too many complications on my daily routine. Can I treat that as a constructive dismissal? So if you usually work regular shifts and now it's going to rotate shifts, if that's a new thing, then absolutely that's a constructive dismissal. On the other hand, if you sometimes used to work rotating, then not, and then rotating, then yeah, it's part of the terms of employment. But if it's a new thing that your employer is imposing, absolutely constructive dismissal. Before you do anything though, Ariel, call me, okay? Contact me, and you and everyone else can do so through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. For those joining us, my name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer. I'm answering questions about workplace rights right now. I have a few more minutes, and I'm going to continue answering some questions. Allison asks on Facebook, how soon should we let you know if we're about to be terminated? Should we reach out in advance? Not really, because there's nothing that we can do in advance. As soon as that's happened, you know, okay, today's my last day, tomorrow's my last day, then we can get going right away. Nothing can be done before, so there's no need to rush and contact me because they told you in a month you're going to be let go. You know that I have your back, and if you are let go, we'll get into action, but we don't really need to connect before it actually happens. From Julius, can you get severance? Can you get severance pay when it's your fault when you get fired? Well, it depends what you did. Okay, it's very difficult to let someone go without severance. It's only where the employee did something terrible, something awful. So if you made a mistake, no, that's not going to be good enough to let you go without severance. But if you made a mistake after being warned multiple times and being told that if it happens again, then you're going to be let go, maybe. But it's very, very difficult to let you go without severance. And making a mistake in and of itself is absolutely not enough, not at all. Okay, Karen, please stop posting here. You're not relevant to your comments are not relevant here. Okay. R asks, if the employer's hands are tied by a government mandate, are we able to get EI, or is our only option human rights complaint? You will not be able to get EI. Your only option is maybe human rights complaint against the government. I don't recommend that, but you will not be able to get EI. Okay, let's see. I'll take one more questions. From Sunny. I've been at a Canadian company for 20 years and was acquired by another company. Now they are talking about changing the company policies as well as employee contracts. Are they allowed to do that? The question is what kind of changes they're making, okay? So if they're making significant changes to hours, to days of work, to compensation, to responsibilities, no, they can't. That'll be a constructive dismissal. If it's minor changes, so instead of asking for vacation from this guy, you're going to have to ask from that guy, for example, that's a change in policy. That's not significant. So the devil's in the details. If and when you know what kind of changes they're implementing and how they impact you, let's talk about it, because that absolutely may be a constructive dismissal. So, guys, I know there's a lot more questions. My time here today is up, but I'm going to be back next week, but forget about that. You can continue this discussion with me and send me those questions. Just do it through email or by phone. Easiest way to do that is through employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Ask your questions then. Don't just say, oh my God, he didn't get to answer my question, so I have no choice. I have nothing I can do. Just email me. Easy. Go to employmentlawyer.ca. Email me. I'll answer. We'll connect. We'll take care of it. there's always the opportunity to get answers. I'll be back next week, but I know your questions can't wait a week. So just go to employmentlawyer.ca and let's deal with them now, today. All right. Thanks, guys, very much for your time today. Always a pleasure. I know there's a lot of questions. Let's continue that discussion. For now, have yourself a great day. We'll talk soon.